final quarter begins right now.
Welcome to the final quarter on CBS 8+. John Howard here, along with Jake Garriani at Petco Park and Karthik Venkatraman from Karthik. Where are you joining us from anyway? I don't see a location for you right now.
Hey, man, come on. It's from my girlfriend's house, man. Let's get it. I'm everywhere.
Well, we appreciate Karthik coming in on his day off to talk about the big news of the day. The Padres naming former Padre pitcher Craig Stammen as their new manager. Gents, let's go ahead and go around the horn. Jake, let's start with you since you've been reporting on this all day today. Your thoughts about Craig Stammen being named the guy?
Well, John, it's shocking news, but it's not really shocking because of the pedigree of Craig Stammen, which I'll get into that in just a moment. But it's shocking news because this was a name that nobody really saw coming, right? When we talked about possible managers and the names that had gotten out to the media and the public, it was guys like Albert Pujols, Ruben Niebla, Nick Hundley, Ryan Flaherty. Craig Stammen's name was never once leaked out to the media or the public. So I think that was the shocking part, was the fact that all of a sudden there was a name we hadn't heard, and he's now the manager of the San Diego Padres. But when you do start to dive into the person and the player, Craig Stammen, it starts to make sense why this hire was made. This is a guy who played 13 years in Major League Baseball, 6 of them with the San Diego Padres. This is a guy who joined the Padres front office and coaching staff after retiring in 2023. He knows the organization inside and out. He's worked with the minor league staff, the major league staff, and of course he is highly respected by guys he took this very diamond with not too long ago. Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., Jake Cronenworth, Yu Darvish, and so on and so on. So I think when you start to look at Craig Stammen, and I understand he's a rookie manager, pretty much everybody A.J. Preller was looking at would have been a rookie manager, I think the hire makes a lot of sense.
Karthik, any initial thoughts from you? Jake's done a great job of building his credentials with the organization.
Yeah, no, for me, I think I'm just as shocked in the sense of like his name wasn't out there like Jake said, but I always thought they were going to hire internally. And yeah, Albert Pujols was the sexy pick, but, Padres fans, the sexy pick's not always the right pick, right? Like, we've seen several great players in their respective sport go on to become a coach, manager, whatever it is, and it not work out. So that doesn't necessarily mean this is a bad hire or people should be shocked in this sense. I mean, this is a guy, as Jake said, is going to have a lot of respect in the clubhouse because he played with these guys. We have seen some former players and current players, come out and say, hey, we really like this guy. We respect this guy. This is the guy that's going to lead us, and we're cool with that. I mean, all things considered, I am not really shocked in the sense the Padres went internal. This is a guy who has been in the organization both as a player and, as assistant to the front office, baseball operations, coaching staff. This is a guy that's been around, and this is a guy that, when A.J. Preller talked about Mike Schilt leaving, he wanted to find a coach that was going to be around for a while. And I think Stammen is the kind of guy that you find that in. He's got his roots here. He's been here for a while. Doesn't really feel like a guy that would leave for another job. Albert Pujols, who knows? Big name. If he does well, somebody else might want him. I don't see that being the case with a guy like Craig Stammen, which allows them to have that tenure that they want, a long tenure, because A.J. Preller really hasn't had that. And over the last 8 years, 5 full-time managers is a lot to have. They were looking for a guy who'd be long-term, fit the culture. I think those ways, Craig Stammen does that.
Well, and I think as we continue to look at video here, Stammen in his playing days, as you two have already mentioned about respect in the locker room, he won't demand respect in the locker room. He's already earned respect in the locker room because some of these guys are his former teammates. And some people might say, oh my gosh, he's 3 years removed from playing. He's too young. And obviously we know that he has not coached or managed at any level in professional baseball or college baseball for that matter. But let's not forget there were days when there was such a thing as player managers. Frank Robinson, Pete Rose, Cy Young, if you didn't know, was a player manager as well, going way back in the day. Not that I remember that, being the old man of the three-man crew here, but the fact that he is just recently retired 3 years ago makes him very much a guy that can relate to the players. He also is going to be a guy that I think makes A.J. Preller very happy. The naysayers, and I've already seen it on social media, is that the Padres have hired a company man, a yes man. And that's all good and well, and that doesn't surprise me in the least that that would be out there on social media. And that can be said until we're about 3 months or 60 games, 100 games into the season where we realize, does he know how to manage a baseball team? And I can't wait to see it. Craig Stammen was always a class act, in my opinion, both on the field and off. He always granted interviews. He always gave us the time. And I think what's very interesting about his respect in the locker room, he's a middle reliever, the least glorified position on a baseball team. You think about it, every positional player, every pitcher, designated hitter, those are all the sexy guys and the guys that get all the glory. You know, Craig Stammen and the middle relievers are the offensive linemen and defensive linemen. They don't get the pretty ladies or the great sound bites after the game, but yet here he is, a highly respected guy, getting the managerial role. I think it's a very intriguing hire. Can't wait to see what unfolds.
And, John, look, you don't play 13 years in Major League Baseball and not understand how to manage a game. Of course, there will be speed bumps along the way as Craig Stammen starts to figure out maybe the nuances of being a manager. But he played 13 years in the league. He's going to understand how to manage a game, especially a pitching staff and a bullpen, something that has been under fire here in San Diego under multiple occasions. And the other thing that's been very impressive about Craig Stammen, you talk about the company man, this and that. Well, of course they wanted to hire a company man. That's exactly what A.J. Preller came out and said, so I'm not sure why people are surprised. A.J. Preller said, we've built this core for almost a decade. We want to keep that core together, that company together. Who more perfect than Craig Stammen to keep that staff together? Reports are already coming out that Ruben Niebla will stick around. One, he's under contract, but two, wants to be a part of this thing with Craig Stammen. Most of the staff looks like it will stick around. Obviously, Victor Rodriguez, Tim Leeper already gone. But aside from that, that core that A.J. Preller was referencing looks like it will stick together because of this hire. You bring in a Pujols, you bring in somebody else, a Nick Hundley, maybe that core doesn't stick together. And then my final thought on all this is how impressive it is that Craig Stammen got to this point. There are reports out there that Craig Stammen didn't present himself as an option early on. In fact, he was helping interview candidates for this job. Eventually, the Padres said, hey, why don't you interview? And now he's the manager of the San Diego Padres. You know how impressive you have to be sitting on the other side of the table and then get a job? I mean, to me, that says a lot right there.
Yeah, that absolutely does. And before we put a bow on this topic, Karthik, I know that you've been following some of the other personnel moves amongst the Padres today, and Jake's comments about keeping this unit together. Ramon Laureano amongst the lead guys who they're planning to keep.
Yeah, for sure. Not really surprised to me with the season that Laureano had after coming over in the trade deadline. He was spectacular, and they could have really used his bat in the playoffs. But, of course, the fractured finger, big addition for, the Padres to go into that next season with the laundry list of free agents that they're going to have to deal with. And, one of Stammen's big things that he's going to figure out moving forward. But, yeah, to just kind of touch more on Stammen a little bit and what he's going to be dealing with this roster since you brought up Laureano. I don't think he's in a position to fail by any means, but there's a lot of holes that need to be fit in. Reports, saying that Rodriguez, the hitting coach, is going to be out. Padres need a new hitting coach. They got a lot of free agents and some holes they need to fill, especially in that starting pitching rotation. How did the Padres address that to help Stammen have a successful first year and years to come as well? Clearly, this was a guy that A.J. Preller trusted, which is why he made the move. And, to that, no surprise at all. Now he's got a piece back in a guy like Laureano. We'll see what other pieces he's able to get back, but then he's going to have to be able to get these other guys. But I really like Stammen also because we talk about, Pujols and guys like that. I'm not saying Pujols can't relate to the smaller guys on the team or the guys that don't get as much shine like Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr. But I think with the guy like Stammen, who has respect to the clubhouse, all of the pieces of the roster, whatever it ends up being when he is managing his first year, are going to really respect this guy, and I really think that's going to translate into wins. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Is exactly right, and it makes the upcoming offseason very interesting. And I can't wait really until spring training when this former player from just 3 years ago is the manager out there every morning fielding our questions and taking us through the season. That'll be quite interesting to see with a championship caliber unit as they head into the 2026 season. All right, let's move forward now. Soccer, Major League Soccer playoffs, and Game 3 of the best-of-3 series between San Diego Football Club and the Portland Portland Timbers will be this weekend. And Karthik, let me start with you. I know this last game when they lost to Portland due to penalty kicks, coming down to penalty kicks, a bit of a heartbreaker since it appeared San Diego FC had this game in hand.
Yeah, for sure. A heartbreaker, and I'll just be frank with you guys. I said it on TV the night that happened. They choked the game away. They were up 2-1. They should have had that game put away. Let up a late goal, that's fine. You know, that happens sometimes. Bounce the ball, luck. They're sending everybody forward. That's going to happen sometimes. But the penalty kicks is what concerned me more. You can't miss 3 PKs in a row, especially in the way they miss them. Over the crossbar by what seemed like a mile, and then one off the top post. This team, I feel like, feels that, you know, they were in a situation where they let one go, and they seem kind of irritated about it. And, you know, this team is not a team that, you know, I would want to go up against if they were irritated, because they're a very talented team. I don't think we're going to see any letdown from them. They talked about, you know, in that first game, okay, they didn't really play well as much as they wanted to after the 30th or so minute where they got that 2-0 lead. Then in the second match, they didn't feel like they opened up the match well, and they didn't feel like they ended the match well. I think in this Game 3 that's happening on Sunday, we're going to see a San Diego FC team that's laser focused and is going to try and get this thing done from start to finish. They also don't like the way that Portland's been played, little chippy. Cisniego wouldn't go as far as calling them dirty, but he said that they play a certain type of way, and they're going to have to deal with it, and that means sticking true to themselves. I don't think this is a team that's going to get caught up in the moment on Sunday. I think this is a team that's going to get it done. It's going to be all business in Snapdragon Stadium.
Jake, you got any predictions? San Diego with the home pitch advantage at Snapdragon Stadium.
I agree a ton of what Karthik had to say there. I will say SDFC hasn't played all that great at Snapdragon Stadium this season. They got that win in Game 1. One thing that is going to be interesting to keep an eye on, John, is this is the first time this team's really ever had to play with this amount of pressure in the history of SDFC. Never has this team faced elimination before. This will be the first time this team goes out onto the pitch where their season could end if they do not win. Let's see what Mikey Varas does with a situation like that. He's always preached stay within themselves, stay calm, go out there and play your game, your style. If all of a sudden Portland scores an early goal or something and the pressure's really on, I'm very curious to see how SDFC plays. There's a couple things to look at, too. Will Chucky Lozano start this match? We're going to be out there on Friday. They're training. I'm sure we'll get an answer there. Also, how will Pablo Cisniega play if he is indeed between those bars and in net, which it looks like he will be after CJ Dos Santos had that fractured cheekbone. So some questions as far as the roster goes. And then, John, how will they play with this amount of pressure on? This team in particular, this group, has never had to face this amount of pressure.
I think that's it's an elimination game. It's as elimination as they can get. And as we look at the graphic here to promote that upcoming game against the Portland Timbers Sunday at Snapdragon Stadium. Karthik, any final thoughts for you? Series tied 1-1 Sunday, 6 p.m. Snapdragon Stadium, best of 3 series, and the series is tied. Final thoughts, Karthik?
I'm going to be there, and San Diego FC going to get the job done.
All right. Absolutely love the optimism. All right, let's move forward now to a different form of football, to football. And the San Diego State Aztecs, who have surprised everybody this year, picked to finish 8th in the Mountain West Conference. They're currently alone in first place with a 7-1 record. They are playing at Hawaii, and if they can beat Hawaii this weekend, it sets up a big showdown, which for all intents and purposes will be for a spot in the Mountain West Conference Championship game the following weekend at home against Boise State. Jake, your thoughts? And I know a big topic has been the lack of attendance at games, and the Wyoming football coach had some snarky comments about the Aztecs as we're looking here at the Wyoming game from this past Saturday.
Yeah, he sure did. He mentioned that he thought there was a promotion where people came dressed as an empty seat. Those are his words, not mine, because that stadium was so empty. And look, it's something we've talked about the entire time since the Aztecs have moved to Snapdragon Stadium. I honestly think San Diego State dropped the ball from the beginning with the ticket prices, how much they charge for parking, all of that. I hope the Aztecs, and Sean Lewis has got to be going to the powers that be and say, you got to help me out. I'm doing my job. I'm winning football games. You got to be able to let these people in, lower the ticket prices, make it more reasonable. Don't charge $50 to go parking. I don't know all the logistics behind the financials there, but they got to figure that out because this team is worth watching. I've talked about how I was dead wrong on this team all season long. Sean Lewis has proved it. Their defense is a top defense in the country. Lucky Sutton has been balling for the Scarlet and Black. And John and Karthik, it is all in front of the Aztecs. They need to win out. They need to win the Mountain West. And then you are having serious conversations about this team in the college football playoff, which would have made me laugh at the beginning of the year if that was a possibility. Go take care of business. The Aztecs have all the means in the world to win out and do so.
Karthik, your thoughts? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, Jake, you mentioned Sean Lewis is saying, I'm doing everything and more. This is a dude that went to classrooms trying to give out tickets to get these guys to come over and gals to come over to the stadium to watch these Aztecs play. He says it in every single press conference. Come watch us. Come watch us. Fans got to go watch it. I'm telling you, man, it's a winner. Hey, we talk about San Diego's got to pull for winners. You can't be bandwagon in fair weather and show up when it's convenient for you. Get out there and support your Aztecs. They're doing something awesome this year, and I'm telling you, just kind of what Jake was saying, they keep taking care of business like this. We're seriously talking about them being in the college football playoff as that group of 5 team, the college football playoff rankings came out, and there were no group of 5 teams in there, which is, wait, if you're the committee and you're telling me that, you're saying as far as group of 5 goes, it's a toss-up right now in any of one of those schools between Memphis, James Madison, San Diego State, North Texas, Navy, whoever we're talking about in that situation. It's up for grabs, and San Diego State's got everything out in front of them. That game against Hawaii on the road is going to be tough. Boise State can present a challenge, but if they can get past these next couple of games, it's looking pretty for them to at least make it to the Mountain West Conference Championship game. You get business done there as a one-loss team coming into that conversation, you're going to be looking pretty good, because I think on tape, what's so impressive about this team that none of those other group of 5 teams have is an elite defense. We're talking about one of the best scoring defenses in all of college football, ranked top 5. They rank almost top 5 in yards allowed per game. This defense is for real. They got guys that are going to be going pro. We're talking about like Trey White, Chris Johnson, and they got other guys like Bryce Phillips to come up big, McDougal coming up big, August Salvati coming up big. I can keep naming guys on the defense because they're that talented. People need to take this team for real. This team is looking like a college football playoff team if they can keep things going.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And this morning, I saw on social media an advertisement and a post from San Diego State, a special on football tickets, not for this game that you see on your screen against Hawaii. This one on the screen here is this Saturday, 6 p.m. At Hawaii for nothing. I was going to say for a shot at getting to the conference championship game. Just another regular season game, but the Aztecs at 7-1 taking on the Hawaii Rainbows. But the graphic that was posted on social media today was a special price, 2 tickets for $40. So $20 each. That's a pretty good price. That is for the Boise State game in a week and a half. So let's hope that special will drive more fans to purchase tickets for the Boise State game the following Saturday. But this Saturday, they road trip it to Hawaii. Hopefully they're not distracted by all the palm trees and everything there in Oahu. All right, let's move on now to the Aztecs basketball team, and no surprise here that they are looking strong. Brian Dutcher and his crew has a deep roster. He's going to have decisions to make as the games and the weeks unfold. Karthik, let's start with you this time. Your thoughts on this roster and how good do you think they looked? I know you were shooting video at their season opener against Long Beach State earlier this week.
Yeah, hard to say. They were taking on Long Beach State, so we'll see. But they got guys back. We're going to see when Magoon Guath comes back to this team, and this roster is going to look a little different then. And Reese Dixon Waters didn't play in the season opener as well, so we'll see how they look like then. Those are 2 guys that you assume to be starters. Brian Dutcher, I don't envy him. He's going to have to make a lot of hard decisions on what this roster is going to look like moving forward, who's going to get playing time and who's not. Latrell Davis didn't even play in the game. We're talking about a talented scorer right there. Didn't even touch the floor in the game. That's how loaded this team, I think, is. And they got 2 talented freshmen now. We're talking about, do they redshirt Elsie Arrington and Tay Simmons? Those 2 guys maybe been some of their most important contributors in that opening game of the season. So how do you fit all these guys into the playing time, sort of getting the minutes, figuring things out when a guy like Odin's looking good? Pharaoh Compton gave you good minutes. Miles Bird, he's going to be good. Sean Newman Jr. is going to be able to move the ball around. Taj DeGorville. The list goes on and on of what these guys can do and how many guys they have. And I think The coolest thing about this team right now is because they love to ramp it up on defense. We all know that when it comes to San Diego State men's basketball. If you got that deep of a roster, the amount of full court pressure you can put on teams throughout an entire game because you can just keep having fresh legs by putting platoon systems out there, San Diego State could be more scary on defense than they ever have been simply because of the bodies that they have on their roster.
Jake, your thoughts on them?
I think the expectations are higher than they've really ever been, John. You look at this roster, Karthik just laid it all out there for you, and you go that this team not only should easily make it to March, they should be making a deep run in March. And I think that has to be the expectations for this roster that the Aztecs have put together. Unbelievable job by Brian Dutcher and his staff to bring back some of those key contributors, bring in new ones. You talk about LZ Harrington and Tay Simmons there, Karthik. Those two guys scored double digits in their debut. First Aztec to do that since Jeremy Hemsley back in 2015, almost a decade ago. So you're talking about two true freshmen that look like they belong on the floor. This roster is just completely stacked. The expectations have to be to make a deep March run this year for Brian Dutcher and the Scarlet and Black, John.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I can't wait to see how they do. And Coach Dutcher said at the most recent press conference, hey, we're going to be a good team. I don't know if we're going to be a good team right out of the gate, but we are going to be a good team. And I was at that game against Long Beach State, and they looked good out of the gate. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how they do. All right, final topic, the San Diego Wave playing a quarterfinal match in the NWSL playoffs. Again, this weekend, they'll be playing the Portland Thorns. Jake, you got any thoughts on the San Diego Wave? And we all know that they have bounced back from what was really a forgettable season last year. We're finally in the postseason this year. They've had their high moments. They've had their low moments where they've struggled to score, but here we are in the quarterfinals. Your thoughts on the Wave?
Definitely been the story of the season for the San Diego Wave, the ebbs and flows of this year. They're going to also face Portland, which is just kind of funny and ironic that SDFC and the Wave are both facing Portland teams. But, John, you look at their final match of the season, a 2-1 loss to Kansas City, who is just a dominant team in the NWSL. I know that's a loss, but they played really well. In fact, they played the last portion of the season pretty well. I think if you're looking at one thing for the Wave, it's the momentum that they are taking into this game. Going to be a tough environment. You're going to be on the road. But I like the momentum that the Wave are taking into this matchup with Portland. I think they got a great chance considering how they played against the top team in the league in Kansas City just a few days ago.
Karthik, your thoughts?
Yeah, I like their ability to score early. I like Dudinia and what she's been able to do as well. But this team's going to have to find more scoring. Yes, they closed out the season strong, but I'm not going to get too much false hope because it was against Utah and Chicago, two of their last three matches, and both of those teams are some of the worst in the league. So I do want to see more of what they did in the first half against the KC Current, the best team in the league. Can they continue that? Can they find the back of the net? That's what I'm interested to see for the San Diego Wave as they hit the playoffs and on the road against Portland on Sunday.
Well, it should be very entertaining, and we've got the graphic to show you in case you're unfamiliar. It's called Providence Park, where the Portland Thorns, and in case you wonder how they got the name Portland Thorns, well, their logo there looks like a rose. Portland is known as the city of roses. Rose bushes have thorns, and thus you've got the Portland Thorns. They play at Providence Park Sunday at noon. And again, another elimination round there with the quarterfinals of the NWSL. That's going to be a wrap on this edition of Final Quarter on CBS 8+. Gentlemen, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Craig Stammen, he's going to be the guy for the San Diego Padres, but the pressure will be on immensely. Back-to-back seasons, the most wins in Padres history over the course of 2 seasons. Craig Stammen better win right away.
Karthik?
Padres fans, don't worry too much about this hire. I know you're so upset that maybe you didn't get the sexy picks. Sexy picks don't always matter, man. Come on, Craig Stammen, get the job done.
All right, I'm picking Stammen to win 90, and they're back in the playoffs, and we'll see what happens from there.
Hey, yo, come on, John. Let's go.
All right, on behalf of Jake at Petco Park and Karthik at his girlfriend's house, who came in on his day off to do this, we appreciate it. John Howard signing off. We'll see you next time here on the Final Quarter.